enjoyed having Jason Thompson, the National Committeeman on the RNC from the state of Georgia, on the show today. It was great hearing about his start in the Republican Party and the activities that he's doing to make sure that we win Georgia on Tuesday. You don't want to miss this. It was a great interview and a great opportunity to talk to somebody who's working in one of the swing states to deliver us a victory next Tuesday. This is going to be a weekly podcast, and we're going to be talking to guests all across the country who are insiders in Republican politics. I encourage you to like, subscribe, share, and join us weekly because we're going to have some exciting guests, and it's really going to be a great podcast and a great way to learn more about the Republican Party. Hi, guys. Welcome to Reliably Republican. I'm Casey Crosby. I'm the Republican National Committee Treasurer. And the purpose of this show is to give you all an inside view of Republican politics from the people on the ground who know what's going on in their states. And we're just really excited to be kicking off this podcast and teach people a little bit about the inner workings of the Republican Party. And today I am thrilled to have with me Jason Thompson, who's the National Committeeman from the state of Georgia. Jason is serving his second term on the Republican National Committee. Jason has chaired the Election Day operations for our Election Integrity Committee, as well as serves on our Faith Advisory Board. And even just as important is he also serves as the chairman of the Georgia Republican Lawyers Association. So, Jason, welcome to the show. It's great to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it was interesting because I was reading a little bit about you, and I saw a story about how you got interested in politics that involves football, Jack Kemp, and parades. Tell us a little bit about how you first started.
I like telling this story. I grew up in Watertown, South Dakota, and my dad owned a Ben Franklin store. Those don't even exist anymore, and their competition at the time was Woolworths, which I don't think exists anymore either, which was right down the street. So like when the Walmarts of the world came, most of these main streets, went away, right? These stores like this. But Jack Kemp was running for president, and I was, at the time, I was like a junior or senior in high school. I think I was a junior. And, people were saying he was coming to town and he's going to walk down, get this, Kemp Street. So his family actually founded, I guess, Watertown at some point in time.
Wow.
And I actually did some research and found that out. But the funny thing about it is that, people in South Dakota, they're pretty laid back, with politics. And they don't, get like starstruck or go and try to get autographs or whatever. They don't run up and get, like you see in other states, like here, if governor, lieutenant governors walk in a crowd, mobs of people would be hanging on them trying to take pictures and things like that. Doesn't happen there like that. For example, the governor right now, my dad still works at a grocery store, and he sees Christy Nome. He's like, "Hey, Christy, how you doing?" She's shopping in there. It's like that.
Yeah.
So when Kemp came to town running for president, he was walking down Kemp Avenue, which is basically like the main street. And he was walking with his whole family. And people were standing on the sides of the street like it was a parade, but no one was doing anything. No one was going out to him, and so you could tell he was looking around like, what in the heck am I going to do? A couple of my friends and I were leaning up against my dad's store, brick building, and there were people in front of us. We were just kind of casually watching whatever's happening, and we're wearing our football jerseys because we had a game the next day. And I'm guessing Kemp, because, it was something familiar to him, right? Football, because he was an all-pro. He played for the Buffalo Bills. I'd encourage any listeners to go back and look at his history about things that he did, because he was one of the first Republicans to have like a really high African-American approval rating. Basically, he talked to everybody. That was his thing. So anyway, he just does a beeline through the crowd and and sees us and comes up and goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Jack Kemp." That's the way he's. And and he says, "This is my son Jeff. He plays for the Rams." And at the time, he did, back when it was LA Rams before they moved and then moved back. And and what was interesting about it is he never said, "I played football." He didn't talk anything about himself. He said, "This is my son Jeff. He plays for the Rams," and then introduced the rest of his family. And then he said this. He said, "If you really want to make a difference in the world, you've got to get involved."
Hmm.
And that was it.
That stuck with you.
Yeah.
That stuck with you.
And
That started it.
And so I remember that, especially when I'm talking to young people now. And I try to encourage young people to get involved, because he's basically saying, nothing's going to change if you don't get involved.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
later, I'm still
great.
involved. Huh?
That's a great point. That's a great point, going into the fact that now here you are, the National Committeeman for the state of Georgia. I know you were just reelected for your second term, so congratulations.
Very much.
I know a lot of people don't understand some of these races are very competitive. They are campaigns. They are full-fledged campaigns. Tell us a little bit about your role as National Committeeman in the state of Georgia, and maybe from the perspective of the fact you are a swing state right now. So there's lots of activities. Tell us what that's been like. Here in Kentucky, we're not getting the same type of activity with the presidential election because we are going to go for Trump, no question. So maybe from the perspective of how busy you have been and just the amount of activity on the ground and what you've seen from a party perspective in your state as we look forward to next Tuesday.
Yeah. So as you know, we've basically been preparing for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 years ago, I was saying Georgia is going to be ground zero. And here we are again, and it's ground zero again. Okay. And so President Trump's and Senator Vance are spending a lot of time in Georgia. They're coming back more and more. And I've heard Kamala Harris is supposed to be coming back and trying to do an event like Trump did. She just can't do it. Mm-hmm. So I was you were with me at the Gwinnett County event that Turning Point did where Trump spoke, but then Trump came back again and at Georgia Tech, McCamish Pavilion, and it was packed full of people. My understanding that Kamala Harris wanted to go there, and now all of a sudden it's changed, and she's trying to have it somewhere else, and it just seems like things aren't really working very well for her right now.
That's great news.
It is. She's supposed to, I've been hearing through the grapevine that she's was going to bus people in to attend her event. And so it's just kind of a lot of moving pieces with this stuff. But they're spending a lot of time here in Georgia as well. They should, because it's an important state. And, when RNC member friends of ours would contact me and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about sending somebody to Wisconsin or, Nevada or whatever." I'm like, no, send them here to Georgia. It's important. As you know, we went door to door in deep blue Chatham County, and that was very encouraging because, there were so many people that were so excited about going to vote for President Trump. And, one of our friends who couldn't walk stayed in the headquarters. He said people were showing up all day long picking up signs.
Yeah, and he made like 1,000 phone calls, didn't he? It was crazy. Just sitting in the office, he was able to make 1,000 phone calls in 2 days. So
I think you and I were the best ones going door to door. I don't know if you ever looked at your app for the thing, but I was like 2 or 3 times more than anybody in my group.
It's I enjoy going door to door, and and one thing, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this, that I've been most impressed with. We are one of the states that you all asked for help from, and we have been sending. I've got a team. In fact, they're in Rome, Georgia this weekend, knocking doors starting today. But one of the things I've been most impressed with this cycle has been the coordination between the state parties, and the entire committee, really, as well as the Trump team on the ground. When we knocked doors, I guess it was last week, and then the previous weeks that I've been there, it's just been very impressive how the coordination has gone between the different teams. Can you comment a little bit? Is that, sort of what you sense, and maybe we didn't have that in the past?
We're way ahead of where we used to be in so many different ways. Not only the coordination within our own party, but also coordination with outside, groups, right?
Right.
So, I mean that, and then as far as election integrity is concerned, we're way ahead of where we used to be. I mean, look, I've been volunteering as a attorney for election day. Okay, now it's election days, but what we used to do is we'd go show up at the headquarters and sit there and wait for the phone to ring. We That's like the total opposite of way. We're very aggressive on everything now. There's like no stone unturned. We're involved in like 30 some lawsuits, I think it is, in Georgia. And we have all these different plans and groups and things we're doing. And so it's going well. But if you let me give you some good news.
Yeah.
Georgia, more than 500,000 people early voted in Georgia that didn't vote in 2020.
Oh, wow. That's significant.
It's significant, and I'm guessing most of those are our people, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I'll give you a great example. So North Georgia is just doing really well right now with early voting turnout. Over 3 million people have voted in Georgia overall. As of a couple of days ago in Towns County,
Hmm.
65% of all registered voters have voted.
That
And
is crazy.
Trump, and I know, and Trump won in 2020 Towns County by 60 points.
Wow.
That's
That,
great.
those numbers are amazing. And again, I sense it. We've been on the ground, and it's hard to articulate, particularly to people who are listening to us, the energy and the enthusiasm you feel when you're on the ground. I mean, we had workers on the street stopping us and saying, "I voted for your guy," and keep working hard. And I've never experienced that type of enthusiasm before. You mentioned some of these outside groups that have also been active and involved within your state and the coordination you've had. And I know that, obviously you're a lawyer and you chair the Georgia Republican Lawyers Association. And you touched a little bit on the lawsuits, but can you just briefly, I know that this has been a passion of yours with the election day operations, which is now several days of work, but, sort of just the effort that you all have had as a group at recruiting attorneys, because I know in the past, we had a lot of apprehension from attorneys to get involved. They were scared it might hurt their business. What have you seen? Like, what kind of changes have you seen within that group from 2020 to now, especially related to your state?
Well, one thing is we've not only have attorneys in Georgia, but from outside the state of Georgia that are going to be helping with poll watching. Okay, and they're going to make great poll watchers. Um, but one of the things that I did was I specifically called trial lawyers that I know, Republican trial lawyers throughout the state, and asked them, "Hey, would you be willing to volunteer your time and be on call if something happens in your area?" That was time consuming to contact a bunch of different people, but it's something that I put the work into, and we have a list of folks from all over the place to be able to call if needed. We've got a great core group of attorneys already, but we also have people that, it's important. Look, I'm a trial lawyer. It's important when you go into court that not only are you from the state, but the judge knows who you are and you know
Amen.
the judge. That makes a big difference versus
Huge.
somebody coming in from another state, and it just doesn't go very well most of the time. So that helps, and so I mean we've had historic turnout here already, and I really think that the comments recently by President Biden, the garbage comment, and now Mark Cuban, his stupid comments are really going to drive more people out. And so we're not taking the foot off the gas. It looks like Trump has about a 2.4% lead in Georgia right now, which is probably better than the other swing states. But we don't want to take anything for granted, and we're just going to go at it to the very last minute.
Well, that's important. You mentioned some of the comments that have been made by the other side, and it's amazing to me. Like I'm like, let's see, we've been called garbage, we've been called Nazis, we've been called racist. I mean, they throw all these things at us, and I mean, do you just sense in your state, and as a female, being told that I'm not intelligent because I'm a Trump supporter? It's crazy. Are you hearing from a lot of your constituency that they've just had enough of this?
Yeah, people are mad about it, and honestly, it looks kind of like desperation, doesn't it? When
Yeah.
when you come out and say all these different things. Something interesting is I saw um, Carville. I don't remember his first name.
James.
James Carville. Yeah. Look, whether you like the guy or not, he's a smart political consultant. Okay. I
Right.
know he wrote a book with Paul
He
Begay.
tells it like it is too.
Yeah, yeah. And I noticed something that he said, and I'm like, okay, well, here it comes. So I don't know who was interviewing him, but he said he was pushing this bizarre fascist Nazi stuff, whatever. And then he said this. He said, "You're going to see a lot of how did he put it? Something like you're gonna see a lot of surrogates talking about this soon." So that was the plan. Do you remember? And it was right around like Kamala Harris took a day off, which is kind of
Oh,
unheard
yeah.
of, right?
Like about a week ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think
She
that was
went
almost like
MIA.
a regrouping. Like,
Uh-huh.
oh my God, we got to do something. And my guess is they said we got to go to somebody this isn't working who we're dealing with our political consultants. My guess is they probably went to Carville and he hatched this plan to basically it's really desperation though. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, if anything, he's Trump's the exact opposite of what they're saying. Um, what's interesting too is, I mean, I have a political science degree, a master's in public policy, and then a law degree. But if you were to go to any like poli sci 101 class in America, I'd say 99.9% of them they'd say communism is over on the left and fascism is over on the right. We've always heard this. That's BS. Fascists are leftists, all right?
Right.
Communists and fascists, they're battling over turf, basically. I mean, they're very, very similar. But we've heard that over and over again. And there, there are, I've given speeches about this before, that there really are no more Democrats. The modern Democrat Party is now full of what you'd call communist fascists. Um,
Yeah.
these progressives, they socialists. Um, you know, there are no more even like Bill Clintons, right?
Right.
I mean, they no more blue dog Democrats. I mean, they just don't exist, and that's
Well,
why you're seeing so many Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard leave the Democrat Party. I call it the Democrat instead of Democratic because it's not democratic. Um, there's nothing democratic about it. I had a court case one time where the opposing counsel said, "Objection, judge, he's calling it Democrat and it's democratic." And, he got all upset that I was saying that. And I just kept doing it anyway. But
it's one of those court kind of get under your skin things, make the other side mad, right?
I have a good way of doing that.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
it comes naturally.
yeah, and it's funny because I hear a lot of, people in Kentucky, historically we were a very blue state and, and we have turned red in the past 10, 12 years. And most of the people I talk to, it's that the Democrat Party left them. They feel like the Democratic Party left them, and they were looking for some place to go, and I think that we're seeing that, like you mentioned, some of the people who've jumped over the Tulsi Gabbards, the RFKs. And it's just been amazing to see these people. Elon Musk, who would have ever thought he would be as engaged in the political process as he is? And, and kind of maybe in closing, one reason why I decided to start this was because you hear all these people commenting about what's going on in the Republican Party, and they're not really a part of the Republican Party. They all have comments about how we can be doing things differently, better, whatever. Everybody's going to have their opinion. But I, wanted to give people a true inside look to one, how hard everybody works who are involved, particularly National Committee members. But two, to encourage people to be involved. So if people want to get involved in the state of Georgia or nationally, what would you have to say to them, and how could they get involved, and what would be just your recommendations to become more of the party and understand how we work and really help us win elections? Because we got to get through Tuesday, and then we turn around and we start right over again, for midterms and then back. I mean, we're always thinking 2 and 4 years ahead. So what would be your advice to people who might want to get involved?
Yeah, well, the first way to get involved is actually vote, right? So that's
Right.
the most important thing. And then contact your local county party, right?
Mhm.
You have to do is Google it, and it'll be there, and they have meetings. Um, some of them have breakfast meetings, and they have general meetings, and they'll have events, and you can get very involved through your local parties that way. I don't know how Kentucky works, but they most of it here in Georgia is county parties. There are some municipal
Yeah.
organizations, but most of it's by county. Um, and we have district committees as well, but most of the organizations done through the county party. And so that's it really is contact, and then contact campaign if you're interested. You can contact campaigns directly and online, or is probably the best way to do it. And there's ways to even go online with RNC's website, to just put in your name to get updates on things, and it can give you more information. A lot of people don't even know about that, right?
Right.
We passed a lot of resolutions, some great resolutions that are on there that people don't know about. And so I encourage people.
Resolutions. Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that some of these resolutions really direct how the party goes, and are sort of precursors in a lot of ways for how we shape our platform and other things. So that's a great suggestion. Um, there's really no excuse for people not to be involved. Like you said, you have these county structures. We have auxiliary groups. If you're a woman, you can get involved with your Federation of Republican Women, young Republicans, college Republicans. There is something for everyone. So like you said, do something, get involved. That's what you started with, right?
Yeah. I
Do
mean, you
something.
can't really complain about things, I guess, if you're not involved.
Oh,
You just
but people do, right?
They do. They do. I look, one of the guys I went to his door, he had all this anti Kamala Harris stuff, signs look like they're homemade signs. And I asked, "Did you vote?" And he said, "No, I don't. It's all corrupt, and I'm not going to." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You got to go vote, right?"
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. So, and that's what we're seeing. Like I said, more than 500,000 people that didn't vote in 2020 are now voting. So a lot of those people kind of had that mentality, and they're like, we've got to go back and vote. We've got to do something. Because if you go if you go to people's door to door, this is interesting too, because Kamala Harris is really pushing this reproductive rights and abortion stuff, and trying which helps with their base. But if you were to go door to door and ask people what keeps you up at night, I'm guessing it's not that, right?
No.
It's like our border is porous. We've got crime all over the place. People can't afford groceries. People can't afford their rent or their mortgage. I mean, those are the kitchen table things people are concerned about. That's what Trump's talking about. Now Harris is trying to say, is throwing stuff out there like, I'm going to be a champion of the middle class. Well, you never were, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and you have no policies or ideas that you're sharing of how you're going to do that. You're just saying that because you're running. It's a really weird campaign she's running.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm always surprised. I was watching, in fact, I think it was in Georgia this morning. One of the channels, it may have been Fox, they were, at a cafe interviewing people, and there was a young girl. who was a Kamala voter, and she was saying, Trump is going to take away my access to birth control, and I can't support that, so I have to vote for Kamala. And the whole point was, you had him for 4 years. And it's like, people forget, we already had President Trump for 4 years. He didn't do any of this crazy stuff. You've had Kamala for almost 4 years, and she hasn't done a thing that they said she was supposed to do, like the border, the economy. It's just a complete mess. And and that's what I hear when I was in Georgia on the ground, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. Back to the issues that matter, it's, I can't afford my groceries. I'm worried about my children. That's a big one. I'm worried about my children and my grandchildren, what kind of future they're going to have. Like you said, the sort of kitchen cabinet issues, I think, are driving. And so what would you say, just closing out this election, would be the most important things that we should be doing just to close out the next few days in swing states, particularly Georgia? Vote.
Number one, vote. Secondly, get your family members to vote, and get those people that you know that hardly ever vote to go vote, and bother them until they do vote. There's a lot of people that just get lazy about voting,
Right.
and they might agree with everything we say. They might be watching, Fox News or Real America's Voice or whatever, but then they don't vote. And that's just ridiculous. So those people, those low propensity voters, are the ones that we really need to turn out and bother them until they do go vote. Look, that's what I told people going door to door. It's like, hey, people are going to stop calling you or showing up at your door after you vote. So go vote.
Do it. We'll stop bothering you. I know I said a guy, he said, no more. I'm so tired. And I said, well, if you go vote, we'll stop coming. And he's like, okay, I'll go tomorrow. So hopefully he did. But yeah, I tell people to be unapologetic, that now's the time just to be annoying to people, to get them out to vote, because it's that important. And truly, I think our future depends on this election. So, yeah, Jason, it has truly been a pleasure having you here today. I think you have given us so much information and encouragement going into next week on Georgia. I know you work tirelessly, and I know, in fact, you are going to be working this afternoon with President Trump's team to try and do that last push in Georgia. And we are so grateful for all your efforts, your state party's efforts, and we're going to be cheering for a big victory on Tuesday. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. Have a great day.
You too.